Hi, my name is Michael. Join me as we build an epic Metroidvania game in Godot 4 using GD script. This is the Metroidvania Forge. Hi, welcome to the Metroidvania Forge. This is an in-depth series of tutorials and videos where we're building a complete Metroidvania platformer game. This is chapter 3 covering game systems. So this video is an overview of what we'll cover in the entire chapter. And if you're new to this series, then you're going to want to maybe go back to the beginning and start following along from there. You can find links to the playlist and the other videos in the description. But if not, if you've been following along, then welcome back. So in chapters 1 and 2, we built our playable character, and we also started building our levels and really making them beautiful. And hopefully your projects are starting to come together nicely and you're having fun building your game. The concepts and features that we're going to cover in this chapter are going to help us build a good, solid technical foundation to support the remainder of our game moving forward. Now, the various parts or episodes in this chapter are designed to introduce features and concepts in a way that will allow us to build a working piece or working set of pieces that work together in a holistic and modular way. So each feature in our system will represent core functionality and introduce concepts that will allow you to expand on them to meet your own needs in your own project. So that's it. That's the goal of this chapter, right? To build the systems that support our game world and features and the exploration. Now, in episode 1, we're going to start with one of the most important core features that we need for our game, and that's a save load system. And this is going to be a global save manager system. It's a singleton style script that will allow us to easily access and update our save data, save that to the system, to the user system, and load that data as needed. We'll also cover some concepts like how to save player-specific data, how to save other data types that will be used for future episodes like our map system or persistent objects in the world. And as we introduce those, hopefully those concepts will make sense. We'll be covering kind of some of the basics and essential knowledge to be able to save, and then you can build upon that. Episode 2 is going to build on top of episode 1 because we'll introduce a save point feature in our game. And this will be the primary mechanic that we'll use to actually save the game from the player's perspective. So this save point will be a reusable scene that interfaces with the save manager script that we build in episode 1. And we'll also build alongside it a visual input hint system so that we can show something like a button prompt for the player to know that they can interact with an object, in this case to save the game. And we'll also build a message bus system to help aid in the communication that we need to make this kind of feature simple. The message bus system will follow a standard message bus pattern, which is useful for loosely coupled components within our game systems. Meaning, one can kind of send a message and it doesn't matter who's listening, anybody can pick it up and respond accordingly. This will be really beneficial to those of you who are trying to begin to increase the scope of your game and want to understand how to work with these different patterns to communicate amongst the different systems in your project. So episode 2 will cover 3 features in one, but in a way that shows how we can architect an easily expandable system for other potential needs in the future. Episode 3 is where we'll work on our own title screen. This is primarily a user interface kind of a video, right? It's the screen that shows when the game starts up, but it will consist of things like an animated logo, as well as maybe some sort of background and menus for starting a new game or loading a game from a save slot. This feature is also going to help round out the save and load functionality of our game because it's going to become the primary way with which your user will interface with the save slots to load a game. And of course, obviously, part of the goal with this is to make our game feel more complete and more professional. Now, in episode 4, we're going to cover a simple HUD interface system. This is where we'll display the player health, and we'll also build in the features that we need to be able to update that health as our player takes damage in the game. So this will be a pretty straightforward but important episode so that we're prepared for things like combat in the future. After that, episode 5 is going to be a really big one. We're going to build a pause screen here. The pause screen and menu in and of itself is going to be pretty straightforward, but this pause menu in this game needs to display a map. And so we're going to build out that full map system. The map system is going to include all the essential features needed for a Metroidvania, like displaying all of the areas that have been discovered, an indicator of where the player is in the game world, as well as some quality of life features for us or you, the developer, that will make it easy for you to manage and maintain that map. We'll also set the stage for future features in our pause menu by adding a system settings section. So, a place where we can put like our audio volume and things like that. Episode 6 will be fun. Here we're going to introduce our first persistently changing in-game feature, which will be a door and switch system. The goal with the door and switch feature is to show how we can use a gating mechanic to kind of help provide a release of tension for the player. You know, when they get to that area or that door where they finally can open it, and it opens up a nice permanent shortcut path, you know, through the game world. And of course, this needs to stay open once activated, hence the persistence part of it. So the door will be integrated into our save and load manager system, and we'll also have, you know, current game session as well as save and load game persistence. Episode 7 is going to be another big chunky one, but it's going to be a lot of fun because we're going to start bringing our game to life with this episode. We'll introduce an audio system. It's going to be able to be used to control playback of music tracks, as well as UI audio and even spatial 2D audio within our game world as needed. Once we build this system, we will retroactively go back through our other components and features that we've built in this chapter and make use of the new system by using it to play back the appropriate audio effects. We'll also create a time-saving and convenient way to hook up our UI elements like buttons so that they have audio playback without us having to do a lot of extra code within each system that uses it. In addition to that, we're going to add audio buses. So we're going to have different audio channels for our music, our sound effects, our UI, and we're going to pipe some of those, like we'll put the music and the regular sound effects through an effects bus that will allow us to add things like reverb, which will be the cherry on top of this episode, so that when you enter an area, we'll be able to configure a specific reverb value. So if you want to have a cavernous sound to one area, then you can simply enable that. And we'll build tools that you need to be able to update these things throughout the game and do so easily with minimal effort on your part. Episode 8 will be the final episode of this chapter. Some of these episodes are big, some are small, but episode 8 has a very critical role, and that's going to be that of exporting a build of our game. So we'll cover both web builds and your native operating system builds, whether that be Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. And once you're able to do that, you'll know what settings you need to configure, how to export your game so that you can share it with people. You know, maybe you've got alpha and beta testers lined up, like your grandma or your best friend. You'll be able to make a build for them, send it to them, and get feedback. I'll also show you a little bit of extra know-how with the build system, like, you know, how can you build and still see debug logs and errors and things like that. And this will be a really important step towards making you feel comfortable working in Godot and being able to publish a game in the future. Now, as always, I've prepared a zip file that's full of assets that you can use as you follow along with my videos. So the assets for each chapter can be found on my itch.io page, the project page for this series. They can be downloaded for free, or you can make a donation if you feel like you want to support me that way. You can find the link to that in the description, so feel free to go ahead and go there and grab it. And thank you for watching. I hope you're as excited as I am about this next chapter in the series. If you're new, then please subscribe to my channel. That's one of the best ways that you can support me and, of course, be notified when the next video comes out. Also, please drop a like on the video and comment below which feature you're looking forward to working on the most. And lastly, I want to make you aware of some other resources that are available to you. Some of you are new to my community. Some of you have never even heard of me before. I have a Michael Games Discord server. It's a great place to join if you want to meet with like-minded people, learn together. It's a very helpful community. People are always helping with bugs and understanding code issues and even developing features, or you can just come and share the project that you're working on. You can find the invite link for that in the description as well. I've also got some other resources linked in my description, obviously like the itch.io page that I've mentioned previously for this series. You'll also find a document that outlines the roadmap for this series, and that changes from time to time, but you can see everything that I've covered in this chapter as well as previous chapters up to this point. And then I've also got a Trello board where I do my best to keep track of the progress I'm making as I develop the features and the videos for this series. For those who really want to support what I'm doing, I have a Patreon where you can do just that. In addition to some occasional perks and benefits, those who support me at the Pixel Adventurer tier will be invited to join a GitHub team that has access to the complete Metroidvania Forge code repository, so you'll have the most up-to-date version of my project as I work through the series. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video, and as always, we'll see you next time.